So last week it was reported that Robert Mueller had indicted 13 Russian billionaires for their role in interfering with the 2016 election. Now, it is alleged that these billionaires and several companies had operated or funded troll farms that were used on social media. So for one, they infiltrated social media groups and also were fake accounts that would spread fake news against Hillary Clinton. Now, one of these groups, these troll farms, was the Internet Research Agency. Now, they'd have bought about $100,000 worth of Facebook ads. Okay. Now you might think, whoa, holy crap, $100,000 worth of Facebook ads. Well, remember, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump bought millions of dollars with Facebook ads, worth of Facebook ads. So really, what they spent compared to the Internet Research Agency is peanuts. But nonetheless, okay, that is a troll farm. That is a Russian troll farm. And they bought social media ads that are apparently pro Bernie Sanders and anti Hillary Clinton and pro Jill Stein. All right. So, hey, there seems to be no question now. That is what they did. Okay. They, again, infiltrated Facebook groups. And look, I know that was happened because I was part of some of those Facebook groups. And I did see this happen. And you have admins of big pages, for example, Lily Starling, saying that, look, we had to weed out a ton of fake Facebook accounts. There was a lot of spam accounts, and there were some of these really questionable accounts, right? With, there were like these accounts that would post the same thing across many different pages, the same links to these spam sites and things like that. So they had to weed them out. And you do a simple who is lookup, and you find out that a lot of these came from Macedonia. Okay. Now, as I said, a lot of these were clickbait sites, but some of them, I'm assuming, were there to spread misinformation. Okay. Now, some of these groups that got infiltrated successfully with the help of some moderators that were a bit opportunistic or gullible or whatever, these pages got taken over by some of these trolls. But it wasn't just Russian trolls. Russians aren't the only ones that have done this. And I go back to, in fact, Russians aren't the only ones who've operated troll farms. For that, I go back to David Brock's group, Correct the Record, during the primary, was also a troll farm. Now, as opposed to $100,000 worth of ads, David Brock apparently paid $1 million just to do their own troll farm that was pro-Hillary Clinton. So the Russians, yes, they did this, but Hillary Clinton's campaign also did this to a larger extent. Interesting. So again, we know this happened. Right now, I don't have any, there's no question here, okay? Now, the effectiveness, well, that's a different issue. But the report also claimed that Russian bots and trolls might have helped the campaigns of Jill Stein and Bernie Sanders. Huh, interesting. Now, okay. So, my opinion on this is, would they have done this? Yes. I actually do think they actually tried to do this, and again, infiltrated the group. Now, it's not necessarily to help out Bernie Sanders, but to go after Hillary Clinton. Okay, that would make sense. Now, I want to go to a clip here from Bernie Sanders, who talked about this, and yes, he validated the Mueller report by saying this. Watch.
When it appeared that Clinton was going to win, and certainly after she won the nomination, what the Russians were doing is flocking to Bernie Sanders' Facebook sites, and they were saying to Bernie Sanders supporters, as they were, by the way, to Black Lives Matter supporters, people who are fighting for social justice, right, as they were saying to the Muslim community, if you voted for Sanders, you have to understand Hillary Clinton is crazy, she's a murderer, she is terrible, all kinds of horrible, horrible things about Hillary Clinton. And it turns out that one of our social media guys in San Diego actually went to the Clinton campaign in September, right, and said something weird is going on. Bernie's not in the campaign. Hundreds of these people are now coming onto his Facebook site. So I think we already knew that. It was an effort to undermine American democracy and to really say horrible things about Secretary Clinton.
Again, no question, right? Bernie knew this was going on and is like, oh, that's weird. His campaign knew and is like, they even warned the Clinton campaign, man, we got some weird-ass trolls that are posting some pretty crazy things about you. Just watch out. Okay, so no question, right? Now the question is, how effective? Well, the Democratic establishment and a lot of their consultants want you to think it's very, very effective, but it was $100,000 in Facebook ads. Again, that's compared to Clinton's billion-dollar campaign. So there's a bit of a disparity. It's almost as if people didn't like or trust Hillary Clinton before the Russians started spreading fake news about Hillary Clinton. And I wonder why. Well, look, it's because we knew what she was about. And that she's basically someone who's rich, out of touch, establishment. We didn't like that. 2016 was a change election, which means that people were looking at the status quo and saying, you know what, this isn't actually working for me. Let's try somebody else. Let's try somebody else who is working as a populist. Again, right-wing populist running on demagoguery and fear of the other, but nonetheless an attempted populist. Okay. Now Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, she loved the banks, whereas Donald Trump went against the banks, and then when he won, he was like, suckers, you guys are idiots. I'm going to fill my entire cabinet with Goldman Sachs. All right. So, but Hillary loved the banks. She loved Goldman Sachs Corporation. She played the game. She did very, very well at the game. She's excellent at that. And her family made billions of dollars working Washington. The only thing that she couldn't work was the people. So nobody with a brain thought that if she got elected that she would change that system. And it turns out Americans were very, very upset at the corruption. Now, the Russians didn't convince people not to trust Hillary. That distrust and disinterest was already there because the more you find out about Hillary Clinton, the less popular she is, the less you get to like her. The Russians did not force people to flock to Bernie Sanders. Hillary Clinton did that on her own. Those stadiums filled with Sanders supporters, they weren't Russians. So I just want to point that out. But let me tell you what could be the Russians, though. This is my own little conspiracy theory. The people who made the sexist attacks against Hillary Clinton, you know, the same sexist attacks that the establishment loved to blame on Bernie Sanders supporters, maybe those people were the Russians. Maybe those people were making Bernie Sanders supporters look bad, look like sexist tools. That's just my own little conspiracy theory. But no. During the primary, it wasn't the Russians that helped Bernie Sanders close a 60-point gap with Hillary Clinton. That's not the Russians' fault. So I highly doubt that Facebook ads made a big difference in this election. Many of those bots and trolls, I think, were pretty easy to spot and easy to discount. And likely, even though they probably did sway a few people, I don't think it was quite as many as establishment media likes to point out. Besides, the people that didn't want to vote for Hillary likely wouldn't have voted for Hillary anyway. Just like there were Hillary voters that didn't want to vote for Obama after that primary. So what likely made a big difference, though, I think, in this election, and this is something that doesn't get talked about enough. When we talk about Russiagate, the Russians swayed the election because they did it with their propaganda. No, what likely swung the election is something that nobody talks about. That's voter suppression. Interstate cross-check, the closing of polling places, especially in minority areas, voter ID laws. That's actually a much bigger assault on democracy. And I am kind of disagreeing with Sanders a bit here. I think that's more of an attack on our democracy than Russian troll farms. And yet the media completely misses it. Instead, they go to Russiagate. Now, why? Because that narrative helps the establishment. And not only that, not only does it help the Democratic establishment downplay the fact that they lost to an orange clown, but it also helps Republicans who will continue assaulting democracy by making sure that less people are able to vote. I think it's much more of an assault on democracy when you take away someone's right to vote based on an ID, based on the fake news that there is massive voter fraud. We have completely forgotten about this. as I said, on the left, in the media, in the establishment media, completely forgotten and completely ignore all the voter suppression that Republicans have put into place, all the gerrymandered maps that Republicans put into place, all the dirty tricks that the Republicans use. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Russiagate. What the hell? Yes, they tried to influence our election, and they shouldn't do that. But at the same time, the people that are really messing with elections are those that are not allowing fellow citizens to vote. So the Republicans are hurting democracy, and it's not Russians that are making it hard for Americans to vote. It's Americans making it hard for Americans to vote. All Russia did was try to exploit our own personal divisions that we had and our own willingness to accept fake news as long as it benefits our own side. And there was fake news mostly on the right, but it did exist on the left as well. I mean, for example, all the Clinton body count stuff. Crazy pants, right? There's more than enough real reasons that you can fact check to dislike Hillary Clinton, which is why I think most real Sanders supporters were not buying a lot of this fake news. And they either sucked it up or voted for Clinton, or they said, hey, look, I know the reality about Hillary Clinton. I want change, so I will vote for Jill Stein. And here's one thing that I'm tired of on that. I'm tired of the vote shaming on both sides. I'm tired of the people shaming Jill Stein voters for voting for Jill Stein. That's your vote. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. You can vote for whoever you want. That's called freedom. At the same time, I'm not going to, don't shame people who voted for Hillary Clinton by thinking hey, man, look, I don't want Trump. Let's not do the vote shaming on both sides. Your vote is your vote. Whatever reason you use to vote, that's your reason. And so don't shame somebody for it. Just don't. Your vote is yours. And don't tell other people how to vote. Just tell people to vote. That's what's important here. But look, as I said, people voted for Jill Stein and didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, not because of the Russians, but it's because Hillary Clinton ran a terrible campaign in which Hillary Clinton ignored progressives and progressive priorities. She told Bernie Sanders supporters, I don't need you guys. I don't need you. I don't want you. And then later on, it's, we need you. We want you. Actually, that was Claire McCaskill. But nonetheless, yet you kind of needed Bernie Sanders supporters. The fact is, Russian interference, which we know is true or not, this election should never have been this close in the first place. That's not the fault of Russian propaganda. That's the fault of the Clinton campaign. And that's a fact. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.